Okay, let's get started with the hands for our character. So what we're going to do is go to this side and start creating the joints that our character needs for his fingers. So there's one thing. I'm going to use intersection to place the joints inside of the mesh. Sometimes intersection might have problems with meshes that are non-selectable. So let's see what happens in this case. If I click here, then here, then here, then here. Yeah, this didn't go well. So what we need to do is, for the time being, make our mesh selectable again. So let's go to the group and leave this at the default value. And let's try that one more time. Actually, let's do the index finger. Skeleton, and there you go. Let's click here, then here, then there, then there. The first one missed. The other two are better positioned. Let's try that again. Okay. That angle of view seems to give us better results. So let's use that for now. And let's continue to create the other fingers. Remember to make sure your last click is on the mesh so that intersection can actually detect it. Okay. And for the pinky, I'm going to create an extra bone here inside of the hand. And I'm just using it for the pinky because we might not need them for the rest of the hand. Otherwise, you should have bones here for every finger. But I just want to create one for the pinky, one for the thumb, so that he can actually cup his hand, for example. And the number of joints a character may require is largely dependent on what kind of character you have and what kind of motions he needs to be able to perform. So, for example, cartoony characters that have not so complex geometry. Let's say that this guy's hands were more like mittens, where he had no fingers. Then you might actually get away with just 2 or 3 joint chains. And more anatomically correct characters might actually need more joints to deform properly. So it's pretty much dependent on the character. But for now, we just want to have this guy have something like that. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna move this joint over here. I'm gonna better position this later on, but for now, let's just leave it there. I'm gonna fix the orientations first anyway. So what I'm gonna do now is I need to place these joints inside of the hand, but to do that I first have to orient them properly. And if you take a look at the root of each joint chain, you will see that the joints are not facing in the same direction as the finger. What we want to do is to have this Y axis face the same way as the normal of the polygon facing on these side of the fingers. So I'm gonna take the root of each joint chain and just rotate it so it faces that way. Let's see. So for him, we will need to rotate him this way. Make sure you don't have child compensate on. We want the whole chain to rotate. And then we're gonna take him and rotate him this way. And now we're going to take the ring finger, do the same. And lastly, for the pinky, I am not going to take this bone. I'm going to take the next. We're going to take care of this guy later. There you go. That's better. And finally, let's do the thumb. Same thing. I'm not going to correct this guy right now. I'm gonna correct this guy because it's easier to align these bones. These we're gonna align later independently. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. And now what we're going to do is, well, first move them over so that they can actually be inside of the hand. Same with him. Now that they are properly oriented, it's easier to move them into place. There we go. Again, right now I don't need this to be super precise. Oops. For this guy, I want his parent actually. We need to move the entire thing. Okay. Okay, now that they are there, let's take care of a few more things. In the case of the pinky, the parent is already facing properly. In the case of the thumb, it's not. So we're gonna fix that. And to do that, I'm gonna rotate him with child compensate on. And that allows me to rotate this joint without disturbing the ones underneath. And I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna move him. Also with the child compensate on. Let's move him to his actual position. So yeah, he should be around there. Although, as you can see, now his alignment is not okay, but that's fine. We're gonna take care of the alignment shortly. So there you go. And now we have to take care of the rotations. So this is pretty much what we did for the arm. We're gonna make sure that that every joint that is down the chain has rotation values on only one axis, which should be on the z-axis. So all the others should be 0. But to do that, as you can see, we can't because they're 0 right now. We also have to do what we did with the bones in the arm, which is we have to merge the transforms so that we can have a single value available to us. And now we go with this guy. And I'm definitely not going to keep you around to see me do all this because I have to do the entire hand. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna pause the video right here, and when we come back I should be done with the rest of the hand of the character. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, I've gone ahead and finished cleaning up all the channels for everybody, so you can see that everything is merged properly. And I also took the opportunity to go ahead and rename everything. So now all the finger joint chains are properly renamed. As you can see, for the pinky, in the thumb, I used the root name for the first joint, and then everything else is just number padded. One thing I'm gonna do is just put this in the correct order. So the thumb should go up here. I'm not parenting it. Oops, I did. This guy needs to go over here. So we have the thumb, then the index, the middle, the ring, and the pinky. There you go. So I was just reordering items in the item list. So now that that's done, we can actually start to make sure that our positioning and rotations are correct. So first we're going to fix all the joint chains, because as you can see, everything is crooked right now, which is not good. And then once that's done, we're going to take care of making sure that every joint is at the place of its articulation. So let's go to him, and then we're going to go down and say reset rotation. So that's going to reset the rotations on him. And actually I can just double click and reset rotations for all the selected objects. So let's do that with each hierarchy. I'm not going to include the first one, because if I zero this guy out, he's going to go out of alignment with the finger. So we definitely don't want that to happen. What did I miss? Zero rotation. Oh, let's see what's going on with this guy, because it's definitely not zeroed. Yeah, something happened here. Let's merge and delete for him, and for his merge and delete, and the last guy. Okay, now we can do it. Well, looks like zero rotation is having some problems with this guy, and instead it's creating, it's behaving like as if I was doing a reset. Or actually, well, my bad. I was actually using zero when I should have been using resets. So I think I did the same for this finger chain, not for that one. I started to mess up over here. Let's fix this very quickly. Yeah, we're just gonna merge those extra transforms, and we're done. So now I can reset the rotations. Okay, now that we have that, we can go ahead and start to properly orient the joints. And you want to rotate everything in local space. Turn off child compensate, and let's rotate this guy into position. Now rotate his child into position, and we can see that the next joint in the chain is not at the position of its articulation. So we're going to fix him by moving him in parent space, which right now it's the same as local, because they're aligned, so it's okay. I could have it either way. So now that he is at the proper position, I can take care of moving everything into its correct orientation. I think this guy needs to be a little bit more like this, and then a little bit sideways. We're just trying to find a compromise on the position of all the joints. So for this is okay. I don't care if this guy is not pointing this way. That would actually break the chain. So we're gonna do that for each of these guys. So let's see the parent. The parent looks okay. I could actually move him further down. Let's not child compensate for this. And instead, I'm going to rotate everything up. Now I can go to the next joint, rotate it down. I'm gonna rotate this guy down too, just because he needs a more relaxed pose over there. Okay, and now him, again, we will have to move him up. Not too much. Just a little bit. And then we're going to move down his child. And now let's rotate everything. Let's see. This might need rotating this way a little bit. As you can see, we are at a stage where we are fine-tuning a lot of stuff, and I do suggest that you invest some time here when it comes to your character to get the joint positions and rotations correct, because the entire behavior of the limb is going to depend on having this correctly done. Otherwise, you might end up with joints that are not rotating at the correct point in the mesh, or rotating in a funny direction if things are not properly aligned. So you don't want to have that. You want to invest some time in getting all this to be oriented properly. So that's why I'm being a little bit picky here. It's for our own good. So let's keep going to get these guys right. And now the index finger, which is also, it needs to go more this way, considering the rest of the finger. Now this one is a funny one, actually. Let's try it like that. I don't. Yeah, we've done the pinky, I think. Let's rotate this guy up a little bit, and let's rotate the pinky down. Maybe that was a little bit too much, a little bit less. This guy is a little bit too much. There you go, something more like that. And finally, this friend. Let's see, how are you looking? I think I need to rotate him with child compensate on a little bit. Yeah, something like that. I'm gonna have to realign him, especially. The other joints seem to be fine in terms of their alignment, but he's not. So I can actually do that right now. Let's align him. X. It's gonna be XY negative Z. Nope. That was for the arms. Let's try XZ. Yeah, that's better. Now he's looking at the correct place. Let's make sure the Z-axis is properly aligned. They're both looking that way. That's fine. And we're gonna rotate him again just a little bit. There you go. And now we'll do the rest of the thumb, which in this case means bringing this guy down by a bit and rotating him. Oops, without child compensate. And we gotta zero out his last bone. There you go. We're done. So that completes our hand. We're not totally done yet. Now we have to get all these fingers parented to something. So to do that, let's get a hand root object, and in this case we're going to create a locator. We're going to set the drop action to match, and we're going to drag and drop it onto the wrist joint so that it matches the wrist joint. And we're going to call him joint our hand. That's going to be the joint that we're going to be parenting our stuff to. And let's change its display. Let's give him a different shape. Let's go for maybe we can make him a sphere, although not solid. Let's make him smaller. And we're going to make him slightly smaller than the actual wrist bone. There we go. And he's oriented to the wrist bone, so everything's going to be fine there. And now we're just going to take every root bone for the hand, and then lastly this guy, turn on compensation and say parent in place. So now everything is under that hand joint over there. So we're done with our character with this side. We're going to mirror the hand in the next video. I'm gonna do a separate video for that because there's a few things we're gonna have to check given the number of joints that we're dealing with. So let's move on and mirror the hand. Alright, mirroring the hand is going to be pretty straightforward as we've seen before. All we have to do is come to our hand joint and bring up the mirror hierarchy tool. So once that's done, we get a second hand over here, which is on the other side of the character. And again, we take off the negative scale, and that's pretty much, we're done. Before continuing with the second part of fixing the hand on this side, which you're going to see in a second, I'm just going to pause the recording to do the same thing we've been doing before, which is I have to rename all these objects. So I'm not going to keep you around to see that. I'm just going to substitute the R in the name for an L on the left side and get rid of the digits that were appended at the end of the name. And I'm also going to do a little run on the channels as before, just to make sure everything's okay. It obviously is because we fixed it on this side, but I kind of like to be sure. That's going to be pretty fast, but it's the renaming part that is going to take a little bit. So I'll be right back and I'll show you what comes next. Okay, there's one thing we need to check before moving on to working on other parts of the character, and it has to do with the hand we just mirrored, and it's the alignment of the joints. Because what we'll notice is that if I grab this hand joint and I grab the other one and I rotate them, right now what we will see is that we're not getting mirrored motion. We're getting well, opposite sides not working together as they should. So Z is inverted, the y-axis is also inverted, and only X is working fine. So we need to realign the joints on this side of the character to have the mirrored movements that we've been working on for the arm so far. At least we're gonna keep this. We're gonna keep doing this for the rest of the character as we progress. So let's align these guys. So if I examine over here the orientation of my joint, we see that X is pointing down, and we have the Z-axis pointing backwards, and we have the Y-axis pointing towards the outside of the character. So what we want to have on the other side is the opposite of these two. We want to have Y pointing inside towards the character, and the Z-axis pointing forward. So let's see how we can align everything for this to happen. There's one thing though that we need to be careful about in this particular situation. And if you remember, when we started to talk about alignment in previous videos, we said that every joint is going to base its orientation when you align it based on its children or its child joint. So this joint, for example, is going to align itself towards its child over here. So it's going to be pointing towards it. So that's great. But what happens when one joint or one object has many children? Towards which one is he going to orient himself? The answer is he's going to be pointing towards the first joint in the list of children. So for example, I can see over here that in this case, the hand joint would be pointing towards the thumb. And I don't want that. I don't want him to lose its current alignment. I want to change it, but not lose the orientation it has. So we need to give him something else to point at so he doesn't move. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to create a locator. And I have my, again, my drop action set to match. And we're going to match it to the wrist joint. There you go. So now it's all good. And we're going to move it down on local space. Just there. And if you want, you can just make it smaller because it's way too big. And now I'm going to parent this locator under the hand as its first child. So I want to do that by dragging and dropping over here. Okay, so what happens is now this locator is part of the hierarchy and it's the first child in it. So this joint will always be pointing towards it. And you can see that if we go to the locator shapes. This guy's using a custom shape, and we turn on link and we set it to custom, for example. So right now it's using a box shape, which I don't really care too much for now. I just wanted to see that it's actually pointing towards the right object. When you turn links on for locators or anything else that has a hierarchy under it, it will always draw the custom shape connecting this object to the first children in the hierarchy, and then it will just draw lines for all the rest of the children. So in this case, we can see that yes, we have the right object in the proper location. This locator is fine here. So now we can proceed to align all the joints in the hierarchy. And this guy will not lose its current orientation. So we're going to select everything. We're going to bring up the align tool. So I know we have to go on the negative axis, so X points upwards. And this time we're going to use XY with an up axis of Z. At first you will always obviously have to experiment a little bit with the orientations to see which axes are turning in which direction. And sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error to get the right combination. But well, it's done. And this one, it looks like it worked. I can see that everything is pointing in the direction we want it. So let's try it out. Let's for example grab the wrist, and I'm gonna turn off the link just because we don't need it anymore, and remove the options. And let's get the other wrist object. Let's rotate them and see what happens. Local space, rotate in Z. Yeah, they're rotating properly. Rotate on Y. Yes, that's what we wanted. And rotate in X. Yeah. So everything is working fine. We can try the fingers. You should do these tests just to make sure you got everything right for the entire skeleton. If you've been consistent with your alignments throughout the rigging, then you should have no problems. But it's always a good idea to check. Yeah, I got the index. It's just I can get rid of the locator. I'm done with it. But let's first check this. So Z, yeah. We've got the right rotations there. Let's try Y. Yeah, that's good. And X. Yeah, we're good. We obviously have to come in and fix these guys, because these guys have no child, so now they're facing in the wrong direction. But that's pretty easy to do. We've done it before. We just come in here and we reset the rotation, and now it's going to be aligned just as its parent is. So we can do that for all these little guys. Just reset the rotations and we're good to go. There's one thing though. In this particular case, we are going to have problems with the thumb, and I'm going to show you why. If I grab this guy and I grab this guy, let's try rotating them. See how that didn't quite work? We didn't get the correct alignment, and the reason is the alignment we used worked quite well for these objects that were facing on opposite directions on X, but the thumb had a totally different orientation. So that particular set of settings didn't quite work for the thumb. So what you need to do is to get, again, X pointing up, and we will need to have Y pointing down and Z pointing inwards. And I'm going to save you some time. You can go ahead and try it out. Just select the entire hierarchy, bring up the align tool, and try different combinations of oops, not this one, of orientations and up axes, and see what you get as you do it. In this case, the align tool is not going to get the alignment properly working for us, but there's another way around this, and it's actually something pretty simple. What we need to do is we're going to get the transforms from this guy and copy them onto this guy. So what I'm going to do is just copy the values. I'm going to copy those onto Notepad for each rotation axis. There you go. And we're going to come over here and just paste them. So let's grab the first one, which is X. Paste it over here. And then let's get Y. Paste it over there. And the last one, paste it over here. So as you can see, this is what we get. Now we need to do the same for the other joints. So let's get this guy, And this guy actually has a little bit of rotations on every axis too. So let's do that again. Copy that. Copy this one and the last one. There you go. And let's paste them over here. This guy. This guy. And this guy. There you go. And as you can see, he goes back into place. And let's just check that this guy, as you can see with this guy we have a problem because he's got rotation values on all three axes. So let's fix him while we're here. There should be absolutely no rotation on X. There should be rotation in Z but not in Y. So let's just zero those out. And then now we have this guy properly aligned to its parent. And there's a tiny flex, a tiny angle right there on the Z axis. And let's just check also its child. Yeah, he's zeroed. So let's just get this guy and copy that value, and we're going to paste it directly. Let's zero the rotations on this guy and just paste the rotation value there, and we're done. So let's see if that actually worked. Let's select both fingers and rotate them. Yep, that's working. That's working too. And that's working too. So why did it work if we're using the same values? Well, the reason is the parent is the one that is mirrored. So these guys' transforms are relative to him. So now everything is good. We can see that Y is pointing inwards over here, while Y is pointing outwards over here. And Z is pointing towards the outside of a character, here towards the inside. So it's all good. Everything is working now. We're done with the hands. So now we can just take this locator, delete it, and let's proceed towards the rest of the character. Moving on.